Last weekend, we heard the parable of the prodigal son. No doubt one of the most beloved of all of Jesus' parables. The parable of the prodigal son is of great consolation to us as we're reminded of the mercy of the Father, who's always looking to welcome us back, even when we go astray. The parable this Sunday is more demanding. Jesus challenges us to rethink our priorities. And isn't this just like Jesus? There's no way to get complacent around him. It seems that not only does Jesus often surprise his audience, but he also surprises us as well. God is indeed merciful, but he expects us to act with right actions. And ultimately, it is on this that we will be judged. This is also reflected in our first reading from the prophet Amos. Amos chides those businessmen of his time who are dishonest in their dealings, those who are only worried about lining their own pockets, those who take advantage of others by measuring out less only to charge more. As we all know, this is not just an issue in the 8th century before Christ in the kingdom of Israel, but it is a problem today as well. If you've been to the grocery store lately, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, this economists call this phenomena stagflation, which means you get less in the package, but they actually charge you more. When we realize this, it is irritating to say the least. However, for the economically vulnerable, it is more than just an irritation or inconvenience. It impacts their ability to pay other bills and adequately provide for their families. So now let's briefly look at this gospel parable. It tells the story of a steward who gets reported for squandering his master's property. In essence, what the master wants is an audit to figure out exactly what's been going on. The steward knows his goose is cooked. Once the master sees the books, it's going to be very clear what the steward was doing with his master's money. So this guy comes up with a clever yet devious plan in the hope that after he leaves his master's employment, others will take him in. He ends up reducing the debts of others indebted to his master so that they will now owe him a favor. It's interesting that when the master realized what his steward is doing, instead of getting enraged, he commends him for his clever, if yet dishonest plan. Jesus goes on to use this parable as a reminder of how people often use all their energies and efforts to get ahead in this world, but often forget about the next. Make no mistake, we must all give an account of ourselves, of our actions, of what we have done, and of what we have failed to do. We must give an account to our Master when our life comes to an end. How have you used what the Lord has entrusted to you? How have you used what God has given you? Your gifts, your talents, your abilities, your family, your resources. If we only use them for ourselves, while that may earn praise and admiration in this life, what will it mean for eternal life? No doubt, many of us have probably at least seen some of the coverage of the funeral services for Queen Elizabeth II. And some of you may, in fact, get up early tomorrow morning to watch the funeral services from Westminster Abbey. I'm sure it will be very beautiful with lots of pomp and circumstance, a fitting tribute to a sovereign who gave so much of her life in service to different people to help others. As you may also know, Queen Elizabeth was one of the richest women in the world. But just like us, she couldn't take it with her. Now, I'm not saying that in any sort of judgmental fashion, but just as a reminder that the riches of this life stay here, but what we do for others goes with us. The question, therefore, remains for each of us: what are you doing with what God has given to you. We've all been blessed so much here at Christ the King. Our outreach and our ministries continue to grow and expand, as does our parish. Those of you who have been part of the parish for a while have seen remarkable transformation over the last couple of decades, which includes the addition of the Mary Martha Center, the rebuilding of our school, and most recently, the renovation and expansion of our beautiful parish church. I continue to tell other people, including my brother priests and our bishop, that the people of Christ the King are good and kind and generous. I've experienced that over and over and over again. Looking at the current reality of our parish and in consultation with others in the parish, it has become clear that there are a couple of needs that we must address sooner rather than later. Our youth center, which was actually built as a bank in the 1950s, and which the parish acquired in the mid-90s and converted into a youth center, is a building well past its prime, with multiple pressing issues including structural, plumbing, and most important of all, security. It's right on Dale Mabry. Really not the best place for our youth to gather. But even more than that, we've outgrown our youth center, as our youth ministry program typically draws between 40 and 120 youth any given evening. It's just too small. We're also blessed to have a nursery for our children during most of our masses, as well as for other parish events. However, I think as most of you know, the space is really too small. Not only that, it only has a single bathroom and could be more secure. Our cafeteria was built in 1958. It provides lunch for over 300 students per day, but is also used for many other events, including our Lenten suppers, Vacation Bible School, and various other meetings as well. It also has no bathrooms. As you may know, it has a stage, so it doubles as an auditorium, but is an auditorium without dressing rooms, without decent sound and lighting systems. The kitchen itself has major issues, including outdated equipment, faulty plumbing, insufficient refrigeration space, dry storage issues, and very significant subterranean issues. Folks, all the subterranean piping under the building is clay piping, and they are rapidly failing. We looked at addressing just the cafeteria issues a few years ago, and the cost back then was almost $1 million. I could only imagine how much that would be today. As your pastor who takes very seriously the stewardship of your funds, I cannot in good conscience direct good money after bad. One other thing we could use is more parking for Sunday masses, which would also allow us to expand Carnival. Important, you know, so the good news is we've come up with a plan to address all these issues at once. We're calling it our Celebrate Youth campaign. The plan is to demolish the youth center, which would then make room for more parking. The youth center offices would be moved to where the current nursery is, and the current cafeteria auditorium would be demolished in favor of a new 2-story building, which would house a new dining hall, kitchen, nursery, theater, and youth center. So I have a few renderings, so if you would look at the screens, you can see what this new building would look like. As you can see, it is attached to our current school building, Shellman Hall, which is used by both the religious education students as well as our CKS students. Here are a couple pictures to show the new dining hall, which makes use of our natural Florida light. It would also be utilized by both our school students as well as youth ministry for food and snacks. On the second floor, you can see this nice balcony feature and really nice walkway area. The theater will be much larger than the current auditorium and will have modern lighting and sound systems. Of course, both floors will now have bathrooms. While we have no renderings of the youth center or nursery per se, The youth center will feature flexible and dynamic space for the needs of our youth program, while the nursery would be much larger and more secure. It would also have segregated areas based on the age of the children, so there'd be areas for infants to sleep, with other areas for children to play, watch videos, or look at books. Bishop Parks has approved this plan upon the unanimous recommendations of our parish council, finance council, and school advisory board. In February of this year, I put together a campaign committee, and since March, we've been hosting receptions to begin raising the necessary funds to make this project a reality for the children and youth of our parish. If all goes well, it is our hope that construction will begin this summer, with the year of construction anticipated. So now you're probably wondering, what is all this going to cost? The cost of this project is $5 million. Heck of a lot cheaper than Derek Jeter's house, which is sold and they're going to tear it down. But personally, I think this is a great bargain for everything we're getting out of this building and for how many people it will serve. But before I go any further, I must share with you the great news that as of today, we've already raised $3.9 million. So that's awesome. Now, that $3.9 million raised thus far comes from a relatively small group of members of our parish family. And those who have already made a commitment to this project, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm also pleased to inform you that $1 million comes from a single, generous Christ the King family who are active members of our parish. I want to publicly thank our lead donors, Kyle and Michelle Bailey, and their family, for their outstanding generosity to the children and youth of our parish. In recognition of this beautiful gift, I'm happy to announce this morning that our new building will be called the Bailey Center. As I speak to you this morning, we are a little more than, that's worth a round of applause, yes. As I speak to you this morning, we are a little more than $1 million away from our goal. And the great news is we already have that money. It's in your bank accounts. So I like to call this, so we're not quite there yet. That's why I'm asking you to join us in this campaign for our children and youth. I like to subtitle this project From Diapers to Diplomas, as it impacts in a direct way our very youngest all the way through high school. I hope that you agree with me in believing that they are worth the investment of our time and the sacrifice of our resources. We all know the world in which we live in today and the challenges that are there to raise children in the faith. There are so many things out there trying to pull them away from God. This project is sorely needed. As you know, I'm not someone who talks about money very frequently, but I am asking you to consider a gift above and beyond your normal support of the parish to make this project a reality. Those of you who know me know that I'm not willing to ask you to do something that I myself am not willing to do. And so in that vein, I want you to know that I've decided to commit $15,000 of my own resources to this project. You don't have to applaud for that, but thank you. Of course, after wrecking my car 2 weeks ago and having now to buy a new car, I'm thinking to myself, this is probably not the best time for me personally to make this financial commitment. But I believe that our young are worth the sacrifice. I hope that you do too. Please know that you do not have to pay everything at once, but you can pay it out over several years. We do not need a check today, but I would ask you to prayerfully reflect on how you can best support this project. In the pews, there are these envelopes with commitment cards. Please take them home and prayerfully reflect on what level of support is best for you, so that next Sunday be able to commit to this project. Like those generations who have gone before us, this is the opportunity the Lord is giving to you to provide for those generations who will come after you. And the narthex, you will see more renderings as well as brochures which you can take with more detailed information. Also in the narthex, as well as the St. Michael's Courtyard, will be Patrick Larata, our stewardship coordinator, along with several members of our campaign committee. We'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. I would encourage you also to go to our website, which will give you more information about this project. There's also a nice short video there that lays out the scope of the project in greater detail. You can also set up your gift online there if you so choose. Likewise, in the bulletin on page 3, there's a QR code for your convenience. Thank you in advance for your support, your kindness, and your generosity. Don't squander what the Lord has given to you. Seize this opportunity for the youngest members of our parish who are indeed the future of the church. They do matter. Let's do this, Christ the King. Join me as together as we support and celebrate our youth.